everybody. It's week 2 of the Green Room, and we're absolutely delighted to be here. Myself and Mr. Owen Funge. How are we doing today, Owen?
I'm not too bad, Cian, not too bad. Getting by those week 10 blues.
Yeah, of course. We're all getting there. We're doing our best. Fair play to everybody for being here, for joining us. We were really exciting week this week. I think we're all looking forward to this one. Former UCD alumni Oisín Nolan, just to name some of his credits. In UCD 2015, appeared in A Chorus Line, directed by Mr. Cormac Gilligan. 2016, played Leo Frank in Prade, directed by James Bergen. He appeared in Fiddler on the Roof, playing Mottel in the National Concert Hall, and that was in 2016. Bobby in Cabaret with IMT, directed by Christine Scarry in 2016. Fantastic production, by the way, which was pretty amazing. Also Rent in 2017, playing Mark. 2017, Hello Dolly, playing Barnaby Tucker at the Driocht. And in 2018, Chromatics in London, playing James. But most importantly, and the biggest credit, is recently playing Ben in Stephen Schwartz production of Rags at the Park Theatre in London. Oisín Nolan, how are you doing, sir?
That was a brilliant introduction. I think I'd forgotten about a few of those. You did your research really well.
Thank you very much. We came prepared, Oisín. We came prepared.
Yeah, you did. You really did.
Yeah. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I was saying this is such a good idea, and I think my heart goes out to, I know everyone's affected by restrictions and the pandemic at the moment, but my heart especially goes out to people in college, people who are just starting, and all the restrictions that are happening there. So I think this is a really just a good way to keep things active within the society. So congrats to you guys for getting this set up and started.
I think that's what it's about, isn't it? It's bringing people together. I mean, we all have a shared purpose, shared common interest, shared common goal. And I think, if we can at least, by the time, we're going to resume to normal, and please God, it's going to be, maybe mid next year, and we can start slowly getting back to the way we lived. But I think for the moment anyway, it's using this time as a productive purpose, and chatting about things that we all chat about, like when we're in rehearsals, when we're in the pub, whatever, ideas about theatre, ideas of progressing theatre. And I think this space will be good for that, and hopefully it grows into the next few months.
Yeah, absolutely. So
let's begin. Firstly, we're live on YouTube tonight, which is a first. Instagram live too. Hopefully next week we might be live on Facebook too. But for the moment, just spread the word, share the link out there. If you go into Twitter, the YouTube link is up on Twitter as well, so you can comment on that too. That's pretty much it. If you've got any questions, please send them in. Owen is going to look through those questions tonight. He'll endeavour to get all of them out. So any pointed questions to our esteemed guest. As I said earlier, it's like a White House press briefing tonight. So feel free to rally those questions into President Nolan power, and let's see how we get on. So fantastic. We're also going to play a few games tonight. So Owen's got the Never Have I Ever's ready, and also the quizzes. What have you got lined up, Owen?
I have some pretty fun Never Have I Ever's to just, spark some embarrassing conversation, because why not? We have to make sure that we showed the audience your drink. We'll be drinking together, so show us your drink there. We'll have a drink there.
Drinks up. There we go.
So, and then we've got some pretty great general knowledge questions coming up, mixed with some musicals, of course. Be a bit mean if we left you high and dry. Last week, no pressure, Sean got 6 out of 12. So you just have to beat 50%. Maybe by the end you'll be number 1. Who knows? So, pretty fun evening. We've already got a question. What's it like being represented? Which I'm sure we'll get to later. And Sorka wants to know what the buzzword this week is. So every week we have a buzzword. If you say the word, you have to drink. So in keeping with the theme and the conversation that we'll be having, we're going to make this week's buzzword London. So good luck with that.
Okay. You're really setting me up there with that one.
Except there's no avoiding that one this week. I mean,
There's
you're going to be
no
hankered
avoiding
at the
that
end of
one.
this.
This is bad. Anyway.
Okay, lovely stuff. Will we crack on?
Go.
Sure.
Lovely stuff. Okay, Oisín, firstly, we want to get a bit to know about where it all began, how you started off, where the interest came from. I mean, you know, myself and I were chatting about this recently, you know, like it can start anywhere from when you were younger in school shows. It could be just the smallest little thing that just incentivizes you to say, this is my trajectory, this is my path, this is the route that I'm taking. Where was it for you? What was it that was the first time and the first probably acknowledgement on your behalf where you said to yourself, this is exactly what I want to do. This is where I feel comfortable. This is my space.
Well, to be honest, I started at a really at quite a young age. When I was like 8 or 9, my parents heard on the radio about auditions for a choir or Tí Corn an Óg. And I don't know why, I think they came to our school and kind of assessed a lot of the people in our school, and I somehow showed musical ability. So I auditioned for them when I got in, and with that choir I did like a lot of just performances, various different places, National Concert Hall, lots of places in Ireland. And from then, I think that kind of sparked my kind of love for music and for singing, really. And then from there, I did my first show with the local musical society. So when I was 10, I auditioned for maybe 10, 11, I auditioned for Kilmacud's Oliver. And I played Oliver there. And from then I kind of just got hooked into the society circuit, and I went on and I did Children of Eden with Dunleary Musical Society. I did a Scrooge with Glencullen. I played Jojo in Sue's Called the Musical with HXT Musical Society. So it started quite young for me. And it became kind of, I think I didn't have a year until I was maybe like 16, 17 when I wasn't acting or wasn't doing a show. It kind of just slipped into becoming a part of my life. I think when you start so young, it just becomes kind of a normal thing. I kind of couldn't really imagine my life without it. So I was doing mainly society shows up until I was 14. I got my first professional show. I played John Reed in Jane Eyre at the Gate Theatre with Alan Sanford, which was amazing. And then from there I went on, I did the Olympia Panto, I did HMS Pinafore and the Mikado with Lyric Opera. I went to Buxton with those two productions. And then I slipped back into society shows again then when I was like 18, 19, 20. I did, like some of you were saying there, I did Hello Dolly, The Driecht, I did Rent, all of the credits that you named that I've forgotten half of them. And then it wasn't until I left school and finished my degree at UCD, I decided that I wanted to train and act professionally.
Awesome. And did you always know that this was the route that you wanted to take? Was it at the back of your mind, did you say to yourself, this is it? I mean, was that always there?
Yeah, definitely. It was always I always knew I wanted to train eventually. I think school, I knew that I wasn't ready to move abroad. I think that's the main difficulty with Irish people who want to train, is that we don't have a thriving professional musical theatre industry here. We don't have the same educational institutions in musical theatre that the UK have. So the majority of the time your option is that you have to move abroad. And I think I just personally wasn't quite ready for it. Luckily, I was aware of people who had done master programs, so I knew that it was something I could do in the future, or that I could go and do a degree here, and then I had that option after I finished. But yeah, I think I always quite confidently knew that it was something that I wanted to eventually do. But I felt no kind of rush to do it directly after school. I think people feel that a lot, as if there's kind of a time frame in which you have to go and train, or a time frame in which you have to decide to go professional, or it's never going to happen. When in fact I think it's very much the opposite. I think a lot of people take a year out, go do something else before they then decide to move to London and go train. So it was always something that I kind of knew I wanted to do.
It's really interesting because I find your pathway quite fascinating. And particularly, you spoke about UCD, and I remember, because I was in IMT the year after you, and I remember always hearing great things about Oisín Nolan, but I remember then you went on to UCD. So tell me, did you start in UCD and then go to IMT, or what way did that work out for you?
I did. So I had like I said, I kind of had like a kind of a complex in my head about whether I wanted to train or not. So I did a year in UCD, and then I deferred for a year. I took a year out, and I went and I trained in IMT, the Irish Musical Theatre Program in DIT. And that was mainly obviously because it was an option to train in Ireland, and also because I kind of wanted to test the water and see how I felt about committing entirely to musical theatre as a training, as a career, but also kind of with the option of going back and finishing my degree at UCD if it was something I was uncertain about. So yeah, I did a year. Not that I didn't like. I loved my first year in UCD. I loved it, but I think I spent the majority of my time in the musical society doing musicals and shows. I think that was really the thing that kept me going. So it kind of triggered me to kind of go, maybe I should really try just committing to this full time and see how I feel about it. But yeah, again, I think I always knew ultimately that a master's program was something that I was ultimately going to end up wanting to do. Well, yeah, no, I think I kind of knew that I always wanted to finish my degree in UCD, and like I was saying, I think even after my year at IMT, I still wasn't quite ready to move. I think it's a slower process to decide to go professional with Irish people, because we don't have as much exposure to musical theatre as a viable career option, because we just don't have it here. In the UK, they have more exposure to it. There are more kind of secondary level schools where they have an option to train full time. So it's something I came to the decision slightly slower, and it took me kind of the following 2 years of finishing my degree to then decide that I definitely did want to do the masters after. And I think it's a good thing to kind of take that time to really commit to it, because it's a difficult career path to choose. It's competitive. It takes a lot out of you. It's something kind of, that you don't want to do lightheartedly. Especially like it's expensive to move to London. There's that whole commitment side to it as well. So yeah, I think I went back and forth with it a lot, but then in my final year of UCD, I kind of went, yeah, I definitely want to go and do a master's program. I think when I started looking into the programs and what's on offer there and kind of the opportunities, I was just hooked immediately and kind of knew that nothing else was going to interest me other than those. I find definitely that my time in UCD, I was like, interacting with lots of different people. It's a big college. You have people from studying different things. It definitely did ground me in a way that I just think if I'd gone over when I was 19, 18, I just would have been far too young and kind of far too naive to it all, that I definitely kind of went over with the kind of firm head of my shoulders, with more experience under my belt. And yeah, it just gave me a lot of kind of confidence going into it, rather than tiptoeing into it being kind of unsure but enthusiastic. I was kind of like, I backed myself a lot more, I think.
So, like, we were talking a lot there about the steps you took and points in which you decided or realized maybe this is something worth specializing in. Was there moments in UCD during your time with musical soc that really gave you that push, or that really gave, like, conversations or like moments performing that just gave you that push to maybe go, yeah, this is what I want to specialize in?
Yeah, definitely. I think something that's amazing about musical soc in particular, people are really kind of supportive of each other. Everyone like bigs each other up a lot, and just the opportunities that are in the society as well. I don't know of another musical society that does 3 productions a year. It's a lot of opportunity to perform, which is great, and you only learn and grow from all of that. I think one of I know when I played Leo Frank in the production of Parade, and I think that role in particular was just one that I really loved. Like I think that role for me was a realization that was a stepping stone definitely towards me going, oh, I definitely love this and I want to pursue this professionally. But even just the society in general, I think just the kind of having that side behind you as a support mechanism kind of gives you the confidence to go forward with it as well. I know when I decided that I was going to go to RAM, everyone from Musical Sock was like massively supportive of me and kind of like cheering me on, which settled a lot of any kind of nerves or worries that I had about it. So I think kind of that in general, just having that community behind you is massively important when you kind of go to do anything like that as a career. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just want to touch briefly on UCD for a moment while we're here, because this is, well, I'm not going to say it's where it all began, but it probably was a stepping stone and a part of it. So I'm fascinated, obviously, you were in a chorus line and you were also in Parade. Is there any experiences from that you just take that you say, wow, that was just one magical moment? In particular, I remember seeing you in Parade. It was an absolutely fantastic performance. And I always found like, I felt, I don't know, something when I was the first time I'd ever seen you on stage, and I said to myself, this guy has something. Like, you just knew that you were destined to do this. There was something special in that performance. So I'm just wondering, like, any moments in UCD where you were like, wow, this is why I do it. The collective spirit of the students. It's weird because it's like, I feel those who are drawn to UCD Musical Society, they tend to be people who have always had this longing to pursue this, or have always had an aspiration to pursue this. And the community spirit and the sense of kind of like, you know, everyone's in this together is huge. And I think I'm just interested to know how you felt you fitted into that and what you took from that collective.
Yeah, but like what I was saying to Owen, like as you just mentioned there, the like community spirit and what you get, that kind of community support that you got out of UCD is massive. I think also the talent in UCD Musical Sock is incredible. And I think that I learned a lot in my productions in UCD from the people that I worked with, because I think I honestly think the level that the people commit to the UCD shows, like people take them very seriously and commit to them quite like professionally, and people try really hard with them. And I think, and that's why it attracts a lot of people that do want to do it professionally, because the standard of the shows are so high, and because people give their all into it, and the society come out with some absolutely cracking productions. I think I was in 3 shows in UCD, and in each one, I can remember moments where I kind of thought, oh, I love this. And also an amazing thing about the shows in UCD as well are the audiences are amazing. They're so supportive. They're like so responsive as well, that it's always like, I know the bows in UCD are like, they're wild. Like they're probably some of the best audiences that I've actually had in shows are probably some UCD audiences, because they're so responsive and they're so supportive of everything that's happening on the stage, and so encouraging for you to kind of like take risks and things. That's another thing as well. It's not a super judgmental audience or environment, so you feel safer creatively to take risks in your performances, to just explore things creatively. And that's what your training when you go to professionally ultimately is finding a safe space for you to explore and play around and be brave with your creative choices. And I think UCD Musical Society offers that to people before they kind of go on to then do it professionally.
Big time. And it's funny because you're talking about, you know, having that kind of receptive audience all the time. I always talk about the experience of a freshers takeover audience is like nothing. I don't think I was told about this thing when I went to UCD. It was like freshers takeover, and I remember Rory Shee was chatting to me about it, and he was saying, you know, you're going to experience this thing, freshers takeover, and you've got to get involved with it. And I was like, I don't know. It's just he's like, no, you have to do it. It's just going to be wild. And the fucking reaction, like people just every 20 seconds you could hit a note, and it's just like,
I know, like, especially intervarsities as well. I remember when I did the first intervarsities at the UCD, and the audience, you'd swear you're at a GAL match. Like people are just like absolutely going mental. It's madness. I don't think I've ever had in any other show that I've done any kind of like audience response in intervarsities, people just go absolutely mental, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's so amazing to have. It's so exposing. Being like on stage is such a worry, is how your main worry is how the audience going to respond to this, but like your nerves are just completely settled when you know you're
Big fan.
so after all, like,
yeah, no, it is. And there is something, Astor Hall is becoming, I feel like, a bit of a mecca, even though, I mean, it gives you heartbreak doing productions, just the amount of technical stuff in it, and it's a crazy
nightmare. A nightmare.
but there's something about it. It feels like you couldn't do a show anywhere else in UCD now, because it's so unique, and like it feels like you're walking into like just a big proper amphitheater. Like it's just it's so open, and you know, those tiers to the left, to the right, and everything's just, and you've got to hit all walls, you've got to hit all corners. So it's a really, really fascinating place. I just want to touch briefly on Spring Awakening. Would I be right in saying that was your directorial debut?
That was my directorial debut and my choreographer debut as well. So
yeah, of course. But yeah, no, because Spring Awakening, I think, is always going to go down in UCD as one of those very, very special shows. And I think, like, my first question, I'm really intrigued to know what got you into directing. I mean, I know that every performer has a deep, I mean, I think especially in musical theatre, we have such a critique and such a mind that's there to analyze and to view theatre and to talk about how we could develop theatre. And I think I'm really fascinated by what drove you as a performer. Because I know some performers say, well, I just don't want to ever do that. And then some performers are like, no, I see flaws maybe that I could see improved on. I see things that could be done better. I can see a way of doing theatre that's innovative, that's creative. And like, what was it for you that made you say, I want to step out of my comfort zone here? Because I feel like when we're performing as actors, not that it's a complete comfort zone, but to step in onto the production side of things is putting yourself outside of everything you do, because you're so used to having everyone evaluate what you're doing on stage and, you know, kind of making it so insular, and then you've got to try and now take on this reign of a whole project and a whole mechanism that's so alien at the outset, I feel. But what was it for you that said, I want to do that, I'm drawn to that, that's me?
Yeah, I think there were multiple factors to it actually that drew me to it. Funnily enough, I knew from first year in UCD that I eventually definitely wanted to direct. I think purely the fact that you have that opportunity in UCD, you know, you really don't get that anywhere else. So I knew I wanted to just kind of like avail of that as an opportunity in general. I think I was always, even as an actor, someone who, when I go to see shows, not that I'd be like hyperly critical of them, but I would be kind of like, this blocking, or you know, I would kind of always be like aware of kind of like things that a director would contribute to your production, whereas I think sometimes people go and they appreciate the performances, but not that they miss all of everything else, but that it all blends together as one, which is the job of a director and of a production anyway. But I think I would always have been quite analytical of when seeing a show, what the direction of the show is. I just knew I really wanted to do it as well, just for all of the learning experience of it. I think there's kind of this, like, when you're only on one side of the production or of the panel, the other side of it is kind of this mysterious kind of like behind the curtain, like what's it like from the other side. Especially I know something that was really eye-opening to me, and that before I did it, I really wanted the experience of, was the audition process. I'd always wanted to know what it's like being on the other side of the room in an audition, and wanted to be able to grow from that, which I definitely did. I'd like through the audition process for Spring Awakening, I learned loads about auditioning in general, and it like benefited me then when I went back to auditioning afterwards, purely just having that experience. But I think in particular as well, Spring Awakening for me was a show that I love, but I knew I didn't want to be in. I wanted to control it from the outside. So it was as much the show Spring that drew me towards directing as it was just kind of my like curiosity and wanting to learn from it as well.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, and I think like I felt similar with Cabaret. It was like there's one show that I just didn't even want to. I wanted to be in, but it was like I want to, you know, have my creative scope here. I like, you know, so I'm really interested to hear that perspective. Just like to acknowledge it firstly. I mean, got nominated for 4 Ames Awards in the Gilbert section. Best actor, Rory Nichol, Rory Sheehy.
Rob.
Best female singer, Lisa Lyons. And also for yourself, best choreographer. So, you know, I think it definitely was, I feel it was one of those shows in UCD that really like made a statement. It was kind of like, we mean business. And I just think
I think Spring will always make that I think it just has that within the show itself. It's a real kind of statement piece of a show in general. I know that was something that I always really wanted to do with it as well. I didn't want to I knew I just definitely 100% didn't want to replicate the like original Broadway production at all. I wanted to kind of pull as far away from that as possible, and it's one of those shows that allows you to, so why wouldn't you avail of that as an opportunity? It's one of those kind of like conceptual shows in that you can just do so much with it, and so much of the messages and things behind Spring are so relevant constantly. So yeah, that was a lot of the reasons why I love it. And that's really interesting. How did you find the experience of working with the prod team? You know, like you had Colin Gilligan there as assistant director. Who else? I don't know who else was there. Laura Taylor, Baz. Baz. Two Baz. Yeah.
Two Baz.
They were amazing. They were fantastic. I loved them all. They kept me sane. They know they did. It was tough. I think I took it on in my final year. I decided I was going to direct and choreograph it and do Hello Dolly at the same time, which was an interesting decision to make. They were amazing. I think we all worked really like cohesively together. Colin Gilligan was like my right hand man. I mean, you were in the show, so you know as well. He was fantastic. It really is a team effort. Those shows, you know, it's a collaboration. It's not between the cast as well. It's not kind of like all the work is on the director in any way. It's any kind of theatrical production is a collaboration between all.
100%. And you like that's what yourself, Colin, were just a genius director pairing. I mean, you know. I just remember it. I remember the experience so vividly, you know, and I think everybody who was in that cast really, really like felt it was something. I mean, I don't think I've ever had an experience like it with a lot of shows that I've been in. It was really, really special. And there was an energy in it or a spirit in it that just I feel it's hard to describe but everybody does feel that way with it. So yeah, it was absolutely magical. Would you ever direct again? Was that you know, some people direct first time and it's like I've done it, no more. Or would you say to yourself, that's something that I want to do again, and that's maybe something that
absolutely, and still is. It's still something that I see hopefully it being a possibility along my career that I do get to do again. I loved it. I don't know about you, but it kind of took me by surprise because I know you directed Cabaret as well. It kind of took me by surprise how much I loved it and how much I didn't. I mean, I love acting, I love performing, I love being on the stage, but I think I was worried at one point that I'd want to be in the show as well, or that I'd miss not being on the stage, but I really didn't. It's kind of like it's so enjoyable to watch your production. It's like watching your child like being able to walk like for the first time. It's a kind of very different kind of pride or kind of feeling that you get from performing on stage, but it's just as fulfilling. Because so much work goes into it, so it's amazing kind of just see it take off at the end. But yeah, it's 100% something that I'd love to do again, and if the opportunity ever came up for me to get to it again, I'd just jump at it, definitely.
Fantastic, amazing. That'll do for the first part. We'll come back and we'll chat about your training, and which leads us on to RAGs, which we're very excited to talk about. But I'll hand over to Owen, and I'll let Owen do the honours for our next segment.
Lots of love being shown in the chat. Tell you what, if anyone has any questions, keep them rolling in. We've got a few here now. So Kira Lyons asks, what's your favourite performance?
What's my favourite performance?
Yeah.
That I've ever...
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, that's really hard. That's really hard. I loved I loved Rent. I loved Mark Cohen in Rent was a really fun one. James and Chromatics, that's for Kira. I love Marco and Rent. I really like for some reason. I think he's on stage a lot. I think when you have a character that's kind of hardly off stage, it's really enjoyable because you kind of just get that kind of continuous storyline. There's no break in your acting, which as an actor is kind of nice to exercise. So yeah, Mark.
We have a message. Lorna Bailey, big fan of you as Leo in Parade. Saw you more than once. Loved it every time. So that's lovely.
I loved Leo as well. Actually, I should say I adored Leo. I loved him.
And Sorka has rightly pointed out that we have said London 4 times. So take
yeah.
four lovely swigs there.
Oh no.
Bless. So we've got some Never Have I Evers now. If people have questions, keep sending them in. We'll start with some Never Have I Evers. So, never have I ever had a costume malfunction.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
I actually don't think I have. I haven't had a malfunction, but I've had. If Lorna Bailey's watching, she might remember this. My first night of Parade, there's a scene in Parade where I had to like change into a like nightgown, and the first night we like the costume changed for the rest of the run, but the first night I was in this like women's size small like Forever 21 like plaid shirt that like cut off like literally just below my hips. I remember I was like, this is not not a PG change up. But I actually don't think I've ever had like a real malfunction. Luckily, I've avoided that somehow by some miraculous.
We've got 2 more questions coming in before the Never Have I Evers. We'll keep jumping between because everyone loves a bit of variety. Anna Egan asks, Oisín, what about your musical sock debut as Ted?
Oh, that was I loved that. Yeah, Bonnie and Clyde, my first show at UCD, amazing.
And Sarah Snee asked the question that I think is fab and definitely worth discussing more. But how did you decide which college MA program was right for you?
Yeah, that's a question that actually I get quite a lot. I think for me it was tough. I was between a lot of different places. I think the key thing to do is to look into the graduating year of that specific program and to reach out to people and to contact them. That's definitely what I did. I talked to, because I auditioned for some different places and got places in different schools really luckily, and so I had the option to choose between a few, and I reached out to graduates from both programs, grilled them with as many questions as I could, and ultimately it was the careers that the graduates from RAM had gone onto was the kind of career that I wanted to replicate for myself. And that's a really important thing to bear in mind when you're choosing a master's course. Is different schools have different staff members, different connections to professionals within the industry who have different connections to certain productions. Those productions are produced by the same production company, which can kind of decorate the kind of career that you're going to have, and it's most likely that when you audition you'll be put in contact with the same professionals, which will get you auditions into the same rooms for the same kind of shows. So yeah, it's kind of seeing what way the graduates are going and deciding is that the same kind of career path that I'd want. And also I think it can be tough with master's courses as well, because there are a few theatre schools that will offer a BA and a master's course, and it can sometimes be hard to differentiate between the outcome of the master's course and the outcome of the BA. So because it's just two kind of different showcases at the end. So I think definitely kind of try and weasel out, if you're auditioning for a master's course that also has a BA, what the outcome of that master's course specifically is, and not just the outcome of the musical theatre students as a whole from the school.
Brilliant. So hope that answers your question, guys. Keep shooting them in. That was like really interesting, and I think it's definitely something that a lot of people are considering at the moment as well. It's like college paths and stuff, everyone going online. It's such a hard thing to decide on. So there's some great tips anyway. So I think this is something everyone has done, and there's always a funny story for it. But never have I ever forgotten a line.
I have forgotten a line. Yeah, I forgot one. Rags. Well, I didn't even forget it. I just kind of came out with like sensical like nonsense in one of our shows. I think when you do a show for so long, I think when a show goes over like 2 weeks of a run, you just like go onto autopilot sometimes, and you can just like tune out completely. And it was one of our matinee shows. I turn around and I'm supposed to say like, "Oh, my name's Benjamin Levitowitz," and I just was like, I just came out with not like non-verbal just nonsense. It was one of those like, I couldn't make eye contact with anyone on the stage because I just knew everyone was dying, and like, oh, it was just awful.
That's right.
Awful.
Oh, that's gas. I mean, it's so funny. I think it's weird that like it becomes such a overthought thing sometimes when you're on stage. Like you forget a line and it becomes something that like almost dictates how the rest of your shows go. People
Throws you off completely.
It's terrifying, and you come up to that line then in the next show and you're like, I can't fuck this up, and it completely throws you off your game for that night as well. But
makes
then
you feel
like
alive anyway, for sure.
it's gas because the audience don't care. They have a laugh and then they move on, and it's so weird that as performers it's something we like really latch onto. So never have I ever broken a prop. It can be on stage, it can be off stage, but like a really important, well, not important, but like
don't tell Chloe Murphy Foley.
No, that's broken a prop. I don't know if I've ever maybe I have. I broke like a satchel I broke a bag in Rent once, on one of the nights. I don't think I've ever really like properly broken anything. Have either of you? Have you broken something?
Yeah, absolutely. I have like zero coordination, and I was doing like a really small show, and it was a glass, so that's really problematic as it is.
Oh no!
And I got bumped into on stage, and the glass just went flying across the stage and just shattered everywhere.
No.
Really problematic. Luckily, right before
sure.
the interval, so we could tidy it up. But people had to be really careful on the stage, and it was in like a home setting, so it was really weird. It was just like scattered glass in the kitchen. So yeah, really, really proud moment in my acting for sure. What about yourself, Cian? I'd say you broke a few in Les Mis back in the day.
Well, yeah, but I suppose when you're playing Thenardier, it's not easy to keep anything in control. But I found, I don't know, I'm awful for this. I don't know about you guys, but I literally, I get real bad dry throat like through shows. Like even if it's like 5 minutes in, it's just chronic. So like when you're doing a show where you're on stage for say like 30 minutes consecutively, and then you want to get that quick moments to run off to get your water and come back on. So I'd like have water scattered all over places, and that's why even like in UCDs, I sometimes like people would be like, "Who left water like beside the bloody wires at the backstage area?" And I'd be like, but yeah, I'm kind of giving away everything here, but yeah, I do remember on one occasion, and I won't name the show. I'm not saying it was UCD, but I did knock a bottle of water over backstage, and I lost the lid, and the water just went all over the floor, all over the wires, everything. And I shat myself because I thought, if something goes up here, it's on bloody me. But yeah, it was okay in the end, but it bloody taught me a lesson not to scatter my water backstage anymore or drink it away. But it is tough. It's tough to get through a show without a bottle of water near your side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is it from me for Never Have I Ever. I'll be back later for general knowledge and theatre questions, but back to you, Cian.
Lovely stuff, Owen. Thank you so much. Definitely keep those questions coming in. Yeah, just to move on again, and I know you just touched on it there briefly, just training. So Royal Academy of Music, this is just so fascinating. You do the master's program there. I mean, you've said that you've worked with people like Imelda Staunton, Patti Lupone, Claude Michel Schoenberg. Like, there's so many people, and like, you know, just to be in their presence alone is something that you're probably going to take with you and your experience for a very, very long time. I mean, Imelda Staunton, one of my heroes, like Gypsy, where she plays.
Mine too. I like, if you could be a fly on the wall when she came to the room, was beside myself. I was not not well about it at all. I think that was a lot of the reason why I chose RAM as well, was just because they're like, the people that you get to work with and the connections that they have are just second to none. Like, we were so lucky. And I remember when Imelda, because we did a workshop with her, and when she came into the room, she was the most unassuming. Like, you'd swear like she could have been anyone who just stepped off the tube. Like, you'd almost have to look twice to realize it was her. She had like a raincoat on and like her little purse, and just kind of like, she's also like 4 foot nothing. Like, she's tiny. Like,
Yeah.
But she was amazing and so inspiring, and has so much. She was an amazing teacher. I learned loads from her. She has so much to give, and she's so encouraging as well. I know. So we all kind of, that was a observed workshop, so we got to sit and watch everyone that was working with her as well, which I think I prefer. And if you do get the opportunity to sit in on a masterclass in that way, definitely don't shy away from it, because I think it's I think you learn more that way. You know, you don't have the added pressure of having to perform and kind of like are in your head about it, and seeing how someone takes direction and what their response to things like that is can be really beneficial to you. But I remember everyone who got up to sing, she kind of like took them by the hand and like escorted them to the piano, and was just so supportive and sweet. And we worked on a lot of Sondheim stuff with her, which was amazing as well. I think her acting through song is just like incredible. She's kind of the queen of it, I think. Her Gypsy, or her Mama Rose and Gypsy, is just like
it's
amazing.
unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
It's exhilarating, and it just doesn't stop. And it's like, you know, when she just turns away and she just comes back in and she just forces her way down center stage, and you're just like, what am I watching? Like, you know, it's that performance to me is one of the greatest ever performances on the West End. I mean, it's mind blowing.
Mine too. Yeah. Mine too.
Like one of those performers that, from watching her, manages to maintain the energy no matter what day of the week it is, and like whatever's going on, she just, no matter what scene it is, you are completely encapsulated in her performance. And it's hard to find someone like that. And she's just insane.
Phenomenal.
And then she did one thing that she told us that I loved as well. She was talking about her how she like prepares for rehearsals and things, and she's like always always come to rehearsals, you know, obviously like fully prepared with your like versions of your character, with your ideas thought out, have that really intensely prepared, but also be ready to throw that away completely. Like, come to rehearsals with all of that work done, but with the willingness to just completely play. And I think that was one of the things that I took from her. And then when I went on to Rags as well, that I just think is a good thing to kind of have consciously in the back of your head when you're in rehearsals.
And is that play from your kind of creator higher self, or is that play from, say, you know, allowing the exterior voices of production or whatever? Like,
I think collaborative as well. I think obviously things change when you see the energy what whoever you're acting off offers you, and if you kind of come with this preconceived notion of your character, and then the person that you're acting off comes with this kind of preconceived idea, and it doesn't marry together, you have to be willing to kind of like merge those things together, which means shifting maybe things that you pre-planned before you got in the rehearsal room anyway. But I think that's in general. You know, come with all the work done, but then also come ready to just kind of go from scratch.
Yeah, it's a great way to be, and I feel it brings you to a greater place of truth, because, you know, if you're to live more in the present moment of that scene, in the presence of the energies around you, you know, as you say, not going in with that preconceived notion is huge. So I mean, that advice is really, really stellar.
Yeah, massively important. But yeah, she was incredible, and Patti Lupone was amazing as well. She was incredible.
You're just name dropping now, Oisín.
Yeah, sorry. Patti Lupone.
Imelda Staunton.
Yeah, but that's.
Does she have WhatsApp?
Yeah, I just here. I'm messaging her right now.
But tell us a bit more about Patti Lupone.
Yeah, well, she another Mama Rose, right? She's and it's so funny because they're both iconic, but so different in their teaching mechanisms anyway. I think Patti was a lot more direct. She was going to tell you how it is and kind of like call you out on things, and she didn't kind of tiptoe around anything, but which is amazing. And when it comes from Patti Lupone, you're like, oh, give me all of the advice like possible. I think Oisín, everybody says don't for her. And she was all about kind of like not over exaggerating things. I think there's a kind of a go-to in musical theater to kind of over gesturize, over kind of like amplify all the emotion. She was really about the truth of it, and about about kind of the power of minimal, like being kind of minimal in your like movements, in your vocalizing things, but sincere and truthful about it. Which I think then when you go back and look at her performances, they're so like they're kind of understated but so powerful. I think that's like a lot of kind of why she's as iconic as she is.
Of course, yeah. Wow, that's absolutely amazing.
Sorry, me thinking about Patti Lupone.
So just to follow on from that, the actual experience day to day in the Royal Academy of Music, the tutors, the lecturers, the fellow students, like, what is that experience like? How did you find when you were going into that arena in London, to one of the most prestigious schools, surrounded by some of probably the most talented people in their field? Were you apprehensive? Were you daunted? Did you find, I don't know what I'm going into here? Was it like a shock to the system, or did you go over with the mindset of saying, no, I'm going to take this on, and I just have every right to be here, and I'm gonna prove what I'm about?
It was definitely a mixture of both. Like there were times when, I mean, you're absolutely right, like the people you work with are so talented, and the year group in general in our year were so talented. I remember we did, on day one, we kind of did a sing through where everyone got up and performed a piece for the class, and I was just like bowled over by the talent that's in the school. But oh god, no, I was by no means, like, there were definitely days and weeks and projects and performances that kind of had me going like, oh god, like you second guess yourself a lot. But that's completely natural, and I think that's everyone in our year had that at some point, and that's the growing experience of throughout the year, as you hit those obstacles and then you kind of then you overcome them. But yeah, I loved my time at RAM. I learned amazing things, not even just from the staff, but just from the people in my year as well. I think something that I loved about my class in particular was that because it was a master's course, there were a lot of people who had come from very different backgrounds. Like some people who had worked professionally before, some people who had just done a normal undergraduate and hadn't. And lots of different ages as well. That's something I get asked a lot, is the age group at RAM. We had went from 22 to 32. So there was a lot, so everyone had something really special to offer, and we were also a very diverse group. I by no means at any point felt like I was in competition with anyone else in my class, and they were super encouraging of that as well. On day one, they kind of told us, you're a company, you're all here because you offer individual things, and you're very much individual characters. And so that was kind of lovely to have that I kind of felt like I was a unique member of that company and didn't really have someone only made it a safer kind of environment for me to then just learn more.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And I think it's I was doing a lot of reading last year of Michael Chekhov, and just talking about being the collective, you know what I mean, and that you can bring individual attributes, but to not allow the egoic self drive your work as an artist or your work as a group. So it's really interesting. It's great to know that you have that space, especially in your training days, that you can kind of be more of a collective, and as you say, that you bring your specific attributes to that collective.
Yeah, definitely. But that's what the rehearsal room goes on to be. it should be the same thing when you're in a cast in a show, to have that kind of like safe space where the rehearsal room is the time for you to experiment, for you to like fail, for you to try out different things. And yeah, they definitely implemented that in our training, which meant kind of then when you go on to do it in the rehearsal room, it kind of just feels seamless. So
fantastic. And so then productions wise, in RAM, the Wild Party, fantastic. What was that like?
It was incredible. Our director Hannah Chiswick was amazing. That was it's quite a promiscuous show. It's I was actually new to it before until RAM. I really didn't know a lot of Lakeisha's work in general. Don't ask me why. I feel silly saying that now, but I somehow missed it. But yeah, that was amazing. That was another show that we didn't leave the stage for. I think we didn't leave the stage for like the majority of the production until the end. We were always involved, like it was an ensemble show, so we were always on the stage, which was intense, like quite intense, but again something that I like enjoy and kind of thrive off of, because it means you kind of like there's no break to your storyline. But it was amazing. It was really intense. Rehearsals were like quite intense. The day in RAM in general was quite long. Like we'd be in 9 a.m. till like some 9 p.m. most days. Like they were really, really, really long days. But that's just kind of the nature of a master's course in general, is they're kind of trying to cram like 3 years of training into one. So if there is people who are watching considering it, that's definitely something to be aware of, that they're quite intense courses, but they like, you kind of need to park everything aside and just kind of grab every minute of it, because they have so much there's so much on offer. It's so much you can learn from.
So if you were to now, I know you've touched on it briefly, but if you were to give anyone advice now who's saying, I'm contemplating doing this, I want to take that step, I'm going to apply, do you recommend it? I mean, firstly, in terms of avenues, the route that you took and from your experience, should people be confident in knowing, so let's say they have a BA under their belt and they say, I want to go do a master's. Do you say people should, if they're told, maybe you should do your 3 or 4 years, would you say, look, be confident and know that you can go do that master's and things can work out for you and you can forge yourself a successful path?
Oh, absolutely. I think the employment rate in my year and the year above, and I don't know specifically, but it's like really like very high. There's people from my year who like are in Les Mis, people who are in Phantom, people are in Lion King tour, people are going to Hairspray. Like there are lots of people who have just done a master's course and go on to have like a very successful career and are employed a lot. I think they're different things. So I think the master's course specifically, I can only really speak for the RAM master's course. I don't know about other colleges, but there's very much kind of an industry access course. So I think it is good to have obviously some level of like performing experience, some level of like kind of training before you go into that. But it definitely puts you in an amazing position in terms of developing successful career, because the kind of the key to that is the industry connections that you then make from your course. So, and master's courses are all about that. So it definitely puts you in a good position to be successful.
That's amazing. And so then that leads you on and you graduate, and then even finding an agent, was that a difficult process?
Yeah, well, we at RAM they have a showcase. So you do an agents showcase in I think ours was in March, April, and then you go on and do your end of year shows. The agents showcase is nauseating. It's a really kind of stressful time for everyone in general. It feels like the world is at stake, and you kind of go on and you do your 2 minutes, and you feel like you're like. It's quite an intense process, but kind of what happened for the majority of people was they did their showcase, agents came to see it, and then between kind of like the showcase and the end of year shows, a variety of different things can happen within our year. So people either signed directly after the showcase, some people waited until the end of year shows to see if they'd get other offers from other agencies that they were interested in. Some people kind of had a meeting with an agent after the showcase and then signed to them after the end of your shows. So I know I signed to mine after my showcase, but before my end of year show. But yeah, I was really lucky that RAM had a good kind of like connections that way, and that they got a showcase in front of some great people. So,
and it must have been, I mean, it must have been kind of to analyze your journey and to think, God, you know, like this time last year I wasn't even here, and now here I am, I've been signed, and it must have felt like there's this whole new world ahead of me now.
Yeah, it was mental. I kind of think you kind of have to remind yourself to like look back, because I know at the time it's all about kind of like looking forward and like, oh, but like this next thing, now I need to get this job, or I need to kind of get this. But yeah, I think it's important to kind of reflect on how far you've come in that moment. Because I know it kind of becomes like a weird kind of pressure cooker when you come to the end of your training. You kind of start comparing yourself to everyone in your year a bit, and like who's signed to or who's auditioning for what and stuff. But yeah, I definitely was really happy with where I was when I was finishing up.
So now we get on to Rags, and this is fascinating, and I wasn't really aware of what Rags until I remember you were cast, and I had to listen to it, and I just thought, wow, where has this been? You know, just hiding away. Like, firstly, the cast recording is stunning. It's absolutely stunning, and I love Stephen Schwartz. Like, I'm obsessed with Godspell. You know, even his production working. Like, I think he really poses a lot of, or constructs a lot of, like, really societal and empathetic theater that can really touch on you know, the working class struggles, the class struggles, you know, and really philosophical thought. And that's what I really like about Stephen Schwartz, is it doesn't shy away from that. And I know there's the more mainstream work like Wicked and Pippin and stuff, but I really like some of the kind of the lesser known works are quite stunning and really thought provoking in their goal. So this production is just it's stunning. The music, I mean, that influence, and I know it kind of it's often toyed as the kind of companion of Fiddler, but you know, there's so many beautiful little interludes in there, even with the kind of like that kind of Jewish influence, and you know, there's I really enjoyed it, and I haven't seen the production, but I've only listened to the cast recording, and it is beautiful. So you played Ben.
Yes.
Would you tell our viewers just a little bit about the show, just a summary of the production, your role, and what it meant to you?
Yeah, so it was kind of, like you were saying, it's kind of considered as kind of like the Fiddler 2, like kind of the next step after Fiddler. So it's following a Jewish family that are emigrating to America, or it's following a woman and her child, and her kind of her just like journey, kind of trying to seek a better life in America, and then kind of just exposes the reality of what a lot of immigrants were actually conflicted with at the time, which was like these really horrible conditions, you know, being paid nothing to work in like sweatshops, sewing and stuff, and kind of the exposure and kind of shattering of what this American dream that they had like left their country, sacrificed everything for, was really what it really was. And in my role, I was playing Benjamin Levitowitz, who was a kind of young, aspiring composer, who was kind of very much just kind of like infatuated with this idea of the American dream, and that they're like America has everything to offer, and then something very tragic happens at the end, which is kind of his realization that that's not how it is. Which maybe I won't spoil the entire show. But yeah, I think what you're saying, Stephen really writes. I mean, firstly, his music is incredible. We were so lucky that we got to work with him on the show. That he was there in the rehearsal room was really like surreal, very bizarre. I think like when you see someone in like in photos and like videos and interviews so much, and then they're in the room with you, like takes your brain a second to be like, oh, you're here.
Yeah.
But he is amazing, and like so inspiring and amazing to work on his material, like to get to work on the material of the show with the writer himself. But it's just really some like really beautiful stuff. And I know when we all signed on to the show, we didn't actually know that that a cast album was going to happen at the end. I think that was something that like progressively happened throughout the production. So that was just like an amazing added bonus at the end. It was like mildly stressful because we recorded it while we were doing the show. So we'd be doing like a day in the studio and then going to the show at night, and then back into the studio the next day and then doing the show at night. So it was intense, but amazing, like such an amazing opportunity.
It must have been like, felt like a dream though, you know, like this is it.
Yeah, it was. It really was. Yeah, I consider myself really lucky as well, because I think like as a new grad, to be like trusted with a role, it was like very humbling, and like a new like original role as well. I think you know, a lot of people like go into like swings or ensemble or covers of stuff, so I was like massively lucky to have that as my first thing out of college as well. And yeah, just to get to like honestly to get to work with Stephen, to get to ask him questions about my part. I know my role in general was like quite close to him, because obviously he's a composer and a writer, like so I know he kind of drew lots of things for him personally. So to get to ask him questions, like when I was kind of like working on my character development and stuff, and to get like his influence, as well as our like director, obviously is amazing as well. But that would just to have him as a resource was amazing.
And what was it like to work with? It was Brona Lagan, was it?
Yeah, Brona Lagan. Yeah, she's like amazing. She's incredible. Always amazing to work with the female director as well. Like they're like, we just need more female directors, obviously. She was incredible. She was so great at letting us kind of play and explore, but at the same time guiding us so that everything cohesively worked together. I had an amazing time with her. She's fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. And I think it's one thing about Rags that I found fascinating with the whole plot is, even in terms of like Rebecca, Nathan, and is it pronounced Saul or Sal? Sal,
yeah.
Sal, yeah. Yeah, I was like, I don't know. And what I'm so interested is how there's that symbolism there between Sal and Nathan, as Sal is almost kind of like the idealist representation of the American dream. And then you have Nathan, who is this kind of like purist and capitalist kind of idea of the American dream, and it's kind of portray your what leave behind what your true values were. And it's quite fascinating that Rebecca has to kind of toy with that kind of decision as to, you know, do I want to create the next American dream, or do I want to, you know, just stand by and play the game and just play along? And I just found that really, really interesting as a kind of like central theme within the show itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it kind of mirrors a lot of the same kind of questions and stuff that come up in Fiddler as well. I know they actually they kind of rewrote a lot of the plot as well from the original, which was awesome. Like a really cool thing that they added in to the show. They added in like an actor-musician quartet into our show as well, and they like chopped up and changed storylines and moved a lot around. Which was it was amazing to kind of get to bring the show back down to like it's kind of like strip it away completely and then like rebuild it, because its original form wasn't actually like massively successful on Broadway at all. So to get to kind of like rebuild the show from the ground up, or to work on kind of that kind of new material was really cool.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. Also, and then we don't want to forget this bit, nomination for an Office Award for Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah. Those, I like wasn't expecting that at all. It was really, really cool. I think there were a few of us, myself and two other actors in the show that were nominated as well. But yeah, it was mad. I remember coming out, Stephen was actually doing a cabaret night in the theatre at the time, and like our class were obviously all invited to go and watch, and then I came out and people were like, "Oh, congratulations!" And I was like, "What?" So, like, I had no idea at the time. Yeah, it was really kind of really nice, a nice kind of thing to add to the experience in general.
It's incredible for a debut West End show.
Yeah, mad. I don't know. I don't know how it happens, but yeah, it was really sweet, like really nice, and the cast were all amazing about it as well.
Yeah,
so
but even on Stephen Schwartz, it's like you're in the room with this enigma. I mean, like it's like being in a room with like Leonard Bernstein. It's the same sort of aura around this person. Like, I mean, it's just, you feel like in musical theater, like to be among the gods and to be talking to the gods in a room, in a studio.
Yeah,
as you've said, that was quite surreal. But I mean, do you feel when you're at that point, it's like, I bloody made it, I'm here?
I don't know about that. Yeah, but like obviously I think maybe one of the scariest things about the whole process was when we went to do the recording of the album. Everything had to get approved by Stephen, so like we'd do a recording and then it would be sent off to Stephen and he'd kind of approve it, and that was like that in itself was like quite there was a lot of pressure in that, kind of going, Stephen Schwartz, like, like be deciding whether my recording's good enough. Yeah, it was amazing, really. Like when you think of like just Wicked in general and like everything that he's written, I don't think I ever, when I imagined where my career would start, I don't think I ever quite thought I'd get that opportunity straight away. Which, yeah, it was.
We might hand back over to Owen now for our second segment. Owen.
Well, haven't we got some lovely questions incoming from the audience? It says my internet's a bit unstable, but hopefully it's okay. So, Morgan, our leader, our captain, our auditor, asks, who's the person you learned the most from in UCD?
Who said that? Wait, you broke up. You asked the question?
Sorry. Morgan, our auditor.
Great question.
Oh, who's the person I learned the most from in UCD? Oh, that's really hard. That's really. I've learned loads from loads of people. Well, I mean, Shauna Carrick gave me like my first part in UCD, I guess, and I've also gone on to do chromatics with her outside, and she's like fantastic. I learned loads from loads of people, really. Yeah, so I think Shauna's like been a great kind of a fantastic friend, and she's amazing as well. She's writing so much new theatre, and she's such a talented girl. Loads of people. That's a really that's a hard question. I loved working with Derry in Leo, or in Leo in Parade as well. She was like a really I learned loads from her, just in terms of like that dynamic. She was really, like, she's fantastic. She's got so much talent. Yeah, lots of people. Everyone.
We have Shauna Carrick on next week, actually.
We do indeed.
Yeah, she's amazing. She, like, the stuff she writes such beautiful music, so she's fantastic.
Anna Bergen is very eager and has asked a few questions. So, first question is, what was the highlight of your training in RAM?
Lots of things. Singing, performing for Patti Lupone was like probably definitely up there. Performing for Claude Michel Schomburg also was like quite surreal and crazy. And then the wild party at the end, like, those three things probably were my favorites.
Sounds so cool. It sounds so amazing. I'm just so jealous, but we go on. I'm very interested in this question, so I'm sure there's a story behind it. Anna also asks, tell us about Moon Boy.
Oh no. Oh no. I'm gonna kill her, that's so mean. But she said Moon Boy, right?
Moon Boy, yeah.
Oh yeah, when to like panically think of a different story that I can tell that will cover this up, but I can't. I was on the Late Late Toy Show when I was like very young, and had like I opened it and I was like, I didn't know this at the time till I got there, but they like put me on this like crescent moon and had me like flew me in on this moon, and I basically have never lived it down since, and Anna Bergen won't let it go. So there, that story's out there now.
I was expecting a story about the show, but that is so much better. That is
no.
so much better.
I should have said that. I should have just.
You could have said you were an extra or something. It all would have slid. Anna also.
Yeah, I should have.
What's your go-to audition song, or do you tailor it to each audition?
I definitely tailor it to each audition. I think the whole kind of during a training at RAM or any kind of music theatre course, the whole kind of ultimate goal is that you have a repertoire of like a range of different songs that cover a lot of different genres that show your castability. So when I have a book now that, depending on what the audition is, what the genre of the show is, I have like a range of different songs that I go to. I know before I trained, I used to sing "Run Away With Me" like to death. Like, I never want to sing that song ever again. But now I tailor it differently depending on the show or what the audition is.
So we'll move on from audience questions because I am a little bit conscious of time. We've got the quiz. So this is very similar to Top Gear. We're going to have a leaderboard by the end of this season.
No.
Let's see where you land. Last week, Sean got 6 out of 12, so 50%. We're just going to go all in, go for it, go crazy. I believe in you. I think you can do this. So, question 1.
In these situations, and I don't remember my middle name, so this is but anyway.
Question 1. What U.S. state was Donald Trump born?
Oh my God, these are not optional.
Some of them are.
I actually not. I can't. Georgia? No.
You want to go with Georgia?
No.
Okay.
I forgot.
Will I give you some options?
I forgot.
I'll give you some options. Okay. Georgia, Washington, New York.
Oh, Washington.
Incorrect. It was New York.
Fuck, I don't know. Sorry.
Question 2. What is the smallest planet in our solar system?
Oh, not because Pluto's not a planet. It's a Mercury.
Well done. Up there for thinking. Okay,
Jesus.
this is an optional one. I would like to preface this. Some of these are stolen from the chase because why not? So, in what sport does Fanny Schmeller play for Germany? A, swimming, B, show jumping, and C, skiing.
Fanny Schmeller.
Fanny Schmeller.
I have no idea. What were they? A.
Incorrect. It was C, skiing.
Oh.
You should have known that one. That's common knowledge. Do you not know who Fanny Schmeller is?
Is that common? Is this general knowledge? Do people know this?
According to the website I was on earlier, yes, it is.
If anyone watching this, I want them to comment and see if they knew who Schmeller was.
What name is given to the sound hole of a violin? The A hole. Kian's already went. So the A hole, the F hole, or the Z hole?
No idea. Sound hole of a violin. B. The F hole.
Well done. It is B. So you could still beat Sean. You just need to get a few more right. What is the cartoon character Andy Cap known as in Germany? Dick Tingler, Helmut Schmacker, or Willy Whacker?
What was it? Wait, what was it? He was.
Oh, don't make me read it again.
I'm going to.
Acting. The character Andy Cap is known as what in Germany? Dick Tingler, Helmut Schmacker, or Willy Whacker? And my mum is watching this, so sorry.
I'm going to go B, Helmut Schmacker.
It's Willy Whacker. Of course. Okay,
That's
we're on to some of the
weird.
musical theater questions then.
Okay, maybe I'll.
Who wrote the Book of Mormon? If you can give me two names, I'll give it to you.
Wait, who wrote the
musical The Book of Mormon?
Oh my god, it's people that were South Park, but I can't remember their names.
I mean, I'll take the people from South Park. I think that's
the people from South Park. I can't remember specifically what their names are.
It's Trey Parker, Matt Stone, in work with Robert Lopez. So
Amazing.
We'll give you that.
Thanks for giving me that.
What iconic musical is based on a book by Gregory Maguire?
No, there's what?
An iconic musical.
There are lots of iconic musicals.
There are most are iconic, but this one I would argue is probably one that will be go down in history.
I can't think of one that's based on. I don't know. Give me an A, B, and C.
Okay. A.
No, is this general? I'm
you can do this.
Like failing in my industry.
I believe in you. We'll chuck an A. Okay. Rags.
Say it again.
Rags. A. Rags.
Oh.
B. Half a Sixpence. Or C. Wicked.
Oh, Wicked.
Yes. Well done.
Thank you. Sorry, never mind.
Okay. Which musical has had the shortest run on Broadway? Is it A, a Broadway musical, B, Anyone Can Whistle, or C, Lolita?
Oh, C.
It is A, a Broadway musical. One whole run. One run on Broadway and 14 previews. That was it.
Really?
The opening night, and then it shut down. Okay, We're back to general knowledge.
Because I really excel in that. Great.
You're doing great. EastEnders began broadcasting on BBC One in which year? A.
Say that again.
EastEnders began broadcasting on BBC One in which year? A. 1972. B. 1993. Or C. 1985.
93.
It was 1985.
Oh my god.
How do you not know that?
I don't watch EastEnders.
How many is Roisin on now?
What did you say, Cian?
How many has Roisin got right so far?
2.
4.
Oh.
So if you get the next 2 right, you can be matching Sean Gilligan.
It's like a penalty shootout.
Okay. In spirit of our buzzword this week, we're going to go classic British with this one.
Okay.
Pret a Manger is a British sandwich chain, but what does it mean in English?
Pret a manger is to eat. Ready to eat? No,
well done.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. So last week, Cian asked Sean, what cocktail was it, Cian?
Oh, no.
Oh, shite. What cocktail was it? It was, oh.
It was a very nice cocktail.
I forget, but yeah, it was nice.
What ingredients go into a Moscow Mule? I will give you a point if you get 2 of the ingredients. Maybe 3. We'll see how you do.
A Moscow Mule?
Yes. Personal favorite of mine, if you're ever buying me a drink.
Rum?
Rum is not in it.
Oh no. Vodka? Probably vodka.
Vodka is in it.
I should have come with vodka. That makes more sense. Triple sec? No.
No.
Lemon?
No.
Soda?
No.
Never had this drink before. I don't know what.
I recommend it. It's very yum.
Vodka and sugar?
No. Would you like me to tell you? Do you want to take any more? I'll give you some hints.
Give me some hints.
There is citrus in it.
Lime.
There is lime in it. And we'll get you one more. So there's like kind of a spice and like a herbiness to it.
Oh.
Spicy herbiness.
A spicy herbiness. Oh, is ginger beer in this? No.
Ginger beer is in it.
Yes!
So you get
Yeah.
6 points this week. So we have.
That was awful.
You're drawing for first. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters, is that I maintain some level of dignity after.
Exactly. You are drawing for first. We have 2 more questions here. From Morgan again, because he is an eager beaver. What was the ratio of singing to acting to dancing in RAM?
By that, I guess he means like classes.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Well, we had gosh, I kind of have to go back in my head. We had 3 like general dance classes a week, and then we also had a tap class, and then we would have a private hour singing class once a week, and then we had a repertoire class as well, which is kind of like a similar type of thing. I think in general RAM was slightly more kind of singing actor based, in that everyone was kind of quite a high standard of that, and then kind of dance kind of like it was a variety, but we got streamed. For anyone who is a dancer who might be considering going to RAM, you get streamed for your dancing. So if you are a really strong dancer, you're put into set A. So, and if dancing isn't something that you're kind of lead with, you get put into set C. So they kind of stream their levels of classes. So
unreal. And there's one more. I'm not sure if we'll get onto this later, but if you were to direct one show again, this is Sorka's question. If you were to just be given like an opportunity to direct again, what show would you like to do?
Oh wow. Oh, there's loads. There's so many that I'd love to do. Weirdly enough, this is kind of a bizarre one, but a show that I really love, I don't know if you guys know it, Man of No Importance.
Yeah.
It's a flattery show. I just love it. I think the music in it's amazing, and it's got such a beautiful storyline. And I remember I saw it in the Civic a few years ago, and just like fell in love with it. And I don't see like many productions of it, and it's an Irish show, and it's one that I think I could remove myself from quite well. So maybe Man No Importance, or a Sondheim show, literally any Sondheim show. I'd love to direct at some point.
Fantastic. That is me done. Well done on your quiz. That was an experience. You did well. You did well. Considering the questions, you did well. So
it's when you're put on the spot, you just can't remember anything.
It is tough, and with a dedicated fan base like UCD Musical Societies, you can't help but feel anxious. So Cian, back to you.
Thank you very much, that was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. Just on the question there about what show would you direct, if you were to direct a Sondheim show, what show would it be?
Honestly, there's loads. Well, I think I kind of find it hard to there's Sondheim shows that I'd love to direct, but there's also Sondheim shows that I'd love to be in. Like at the same time, I know I love Merrily We Roll Along. And I just love the music, and it's amazing. But at the same time, I'd love to play Charlie in that as well. And then I think Into the Woods, like I think everyone has like a thing for Into the Woods, but I think it's because it lends itself to so many options, and there's so many characters and so many stories in it. I don't think you often get a show that's that lends itself that way, that has such a big cast. They're usually like smaller casts that are kind of conceptual shows in general. So yeah, maybe one of those two. What about you?
Oh God, we're a big company, and I love company. But I would say one I would love to throw the hat at is Assassins.
Amazing show.
I remember. Did you see Assassins in the Gate, by the way?
I actually didn't. I think I might have. I think I was in London at the time. I didn't, but I heard amazing things about it.
I have to open my beer.
Oisín.
I drank loads.
Yeah, it was incredible. And their adaptation was really, really, really cool. I remember a few went actually from the Musical Society, but I just think there's a lot, like the political context is great in it. The characters, even, you know, like you have these kind of really, really sensationalist characters, and I think it's a bit of a wacky piece of theater. Like even the dialogue's wacky, everything's a bit wild, and I think it shows off this very, very very chaotic. I mean, we're talking about the American dream there. This is like the other end of the American dream. You know, the lost people of the American dream, and I think like it's really, really interesting. I just love that show. I think if I was to do one Sondheim, if I could ever do one Sondheim again, I think it would be probably that. I don't know if you can count West Side Story as Sondheim.
Yeah, sure.
Would love to do West Side Story as well. But yeah, they'd be the two big ones that I really, really love, and Company, obviously. I would say.
Yeah.
Just a question now on where it goes from here. You know, what do you think, especially in particular musical theatre? I know we're coming possibly out of COVID soon, please God. You know, the industry has been shattered here now over the past year. Where does it go? And if you could rewrite the book on how musical theatre is approached in Ireland, even from a training perspective, just from a production perspective, what's the next step? Any ideas?
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think what's frustrating is there's so much Irish talent in musical theatre, but there isn't the professional industry for it to be platformed and showcased. So like obviously that we have a theatre industry here, and musical theatre features within that, but the way things in Ireland differentiate from New York, from London, is that it's not its kind of own standalone industry. And I think the saddest thing for me is to see people who have a passion for musical theatre and want to kind of make it happen, but because there isn't the, you know, funding support for it, there, because there isn't the training facilities for it, it kind of gets lost, or they kind of divert into other things and other avenues. So I think it's supporting and encouraging and funding and getting behind Irish productions, Irish musical theatre productions, and finding a house for them as well is hard. You know, obviously, like we have our national theatres. I know there was Come From Away in the Abbey and stuff, but you know, having that like training facility venues that are like musical theatre venues and stuff is just something that we don't have here. But then I think what's interesting is, I think because of that, I think the amateur circuit in Ireland is such a high standard. And I'm going off kilt here a little bit, but the like standard of talent and ability within the amateur circuit here is so high, because there isn't kind of like a next level for that talent to go to, those people to go up into, that's like accessible, that doesn't involve moving to London. But yeah, I don't know, that's a tough one, really. I think I think it's funding and supporting more Irish productions, Irish musical theatre in general, and having that kind of training. I think it does kind of stem from training as well. I know like there's a couple of courses here now that are musical theatre undergrads, offer musical theatre training, but yeah, I think seeing more of them would make more of a demand for that, to have that as career here.
Yeah, and can Ireland become like a centre ground for musical theatre? And since I know that we produce the talent, But as you say, in terms of having a home space to put on homegrown productions, is that something that's possible, do you think? Or do you think that really the centre ground will always be London and New York?
No, I think it's definitely possible here. You know, it's not like in Germany, there's a huge musical theatre circuit there as well. Like, it's not just London and New York. There's so many European cities have lots of like professional musical theatre venues. I think we're a bit I think we're a bit stuck in the past here a little bit. Like I think we need to move forward a bit with our national theatres and with the theatre that we do here. And I think musical theatre is kind of relatively new-ish, maybe in terms of Irish theatre, and we don't support, there's not as much support for it because of how new it is. I definitely think there's the demand and there's the talent and there's the audience for musical theatre here. So it's something that would definitely be successful. So I don't see why it isn't a possibility here. No, I don't see why it wouldn't be.
Interesting. Okay. And in terms of musical theatre in general, is there any issues to you in musical theatre? Is there anything that you feel needs to be done in musical theatre, in the industry, and beyond? Is there anything that racks your brain sometimes and you're like, God, we could do better there?
Yeah, well, there's a few things. I think across lots of there's a lot. I think obviously representation is a big topic at the moment. Lots of people are talking about. I think that comes down to multiple things. I think ultimately with musical theatre, with theatre in general, there's kind of a class, there's a bit of a class issue in that, like, theatre is luxury. Like, going to theatre is expensive, and like the accessibility of that, like when you think about it, bring a family to the theatre, that's like 5 tickets. If it's a West End show, if it's in London, that's a family of 5 transporting them to London. It's often like a meal out. It's a really expensive form of entertainment, and that affects its accessibility. And I think so because of that, theatre's kind of catered to a specific class. Has been like that, an entertainment to that specific class because of its accessibility, and therefore but with that in mind, it's been, you know, an entertainment platform for that specific class while profiting off the stories of other classes. And I think the aim of theatre should always be to kind of ask these challenging questions and to hold up a reflective kind of mirror to the audience, but for it to be truthful. Like, you need to ask, in order to ask those questions to be effective, the theatre itself needs to be truthful. And I think in order for theatre to be truthful, there has to be authenticity in it, and who's performing and who's behind the production, asking those questions. And I think that that's something that's being talked about a lot at the moment, is diversity within cast and diversity within production as well. And I think that's something, I think a lot of conversations are being had on that now that weren't being had before. So I do think it's progressing that way. And hopefully there'll be, you know, those conversations will turn into action once things are up and running again after the pandemic, when theatres can open again, and hopefully we do see that then on stage and on the production side of things as well.
Yeah, and I think this period in particular is a real reevaluation period, and I think that when things do resume, it's going to be fascinating to see, because I feel it's like Pandora's box has opened and there's no going back now, and I feel this is center stage and in the spotlight, representation spotlight in theatre, and that's going to be really, really important, I feel. And I'm really interested to see how the industries react to it, and I think they're reacting with positivity, and I hope you know, those changes are evident. But I think, as you say, I mean, one big thing is class, and I think what I found fascinating, I was blown away by how theatre is really, really, how it's been set up in such a way since post-communism, how they endeavor to make the arts and theatre very, very accessible to everybody post-1989. And I'll give you an example. Like, I would go to the theatre, I would say 3 or 4 nights a week in Prague, because I could afford it. as a student, I mean, I went to National Theatre in Prague. I saw many operas. I would pay max as a student €4, because I was a student in the city, studying there, and that facility was left open to us. And you guys know yourselves, I mean, in Dublin, it's insanity. Like, if I want to go and see something even mainstream, if it's in the Bord Gáis, if it's just an average touring production, you might pay up to 50 to 60 euro to get a ticket. And I feel this is we can either acknowledge that that's going to forever stunt the industry here, it's going to forever stunt the accessibility here. And I think it's the same in a lot of countries. But I feel if you don't at least have the accessibility, even for students, at that basic level, if you can make it financially accessible, it brings people along. I know Shamie Campbell did a live yesterday, which was really, really interesting. What's her name? She played Angelica in a recent production.
Rachel.
Oh,
yeah.
Rachel. Like, so fascinating, and her perspective on class, and, you know, talking about how, you know, playing the cello when she was younger, and how, you know, the local authorities took the financial supports away for that. And she said, I just stopped playing the cello, because we couldn't afford anymore. And this is the integral point. It's like, if you want to go to the most prestigious stage schools, if you want to go to the most prestigious drama schools, if you want to hone in on your craft and increase your craft, and you want access to that, you need the financial backing. And I think it's a really, really important point. And I think the countries, what I found in somewhere like Prague and the Czech Republic, where that access was there, and if you wanted to go to drama school, like there's a DAMU in Prague, which, you know, you can go for free. It's like, it's facilitated for you, and it's a breeding ground. And what I found, the theatre in Prague was it's quite avant-garde in areas, and it was quite out there, and it was a bit abstract, but it was accessible, and people were pushing boundaries, and they were doing wild things because they could just go in and do it. And yeah, that's a really interesting point you brought up about class. And I think
you're dead right. I think the class and just the accessibility, like you were saying, of theatre in general at the moment. If you want, like you're saying, if you want to train, if you want to become professional, you have to have that financial backing. It's almost a luxury to do that in general. Almost like a privilege to be able to do that, to be able to afford to do it. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's mad how it's completely different in Prague, which is like not miles away from us. You know, it's just the structure, how it's set up here is wrong and needs to be reassessed.
Yeah, majorly. I just want to touch on a quick question, just in terms of rags. When you're preparing for a role, when Oisín Nolan is preparing for a role, what do you do? How do you approach a role? What's your any tips, any advice?
Well, there's lots. I think the amazing thing about rags was that we had so much to research and look up in terms of like, this is a story about real life people. So we, like, I know I personally did a lot of looking up of immigrants at that time, like what their stories were, and our production was great at providing us with those materials as well. I know our director sent us over like lots of documentaries to watch, lots of interviews to watch with people. So having that kind of just knowledge of the historical background of these people when you're going into a piece like Rags was like absolutely vital. I think that was the first thing I did before I even touched the script, was really kind of, especially, you know, this is a really important part of history and they're a really important community of people, and I wanted to represent that correctly. So I know I did a lot of reading, a lot of like watching documentaries on the immigration system in America at the time and how people were treated, and then I think when it's in terms of character development, it was funny because obviously this is an original show, so this part hadn't been done before, so it was like a completely fresh approach to it, and I did a lot of back and forth with how this character could be played. And I think ultimately I actually did what Imelda Staunton told me. I went in with an idea of how I thought Ben could be, and I like based on his like motives. I did kind of like a whole character debrief in my head and wrote down notes of like what I think, you know, the things he love are, what I think his morals are, his kind of like intentions, what his wants are within the show. And went in with that into rehearsals, and then was ready to kind of like adapt and compensate depending on what other people were bringing to the show as well. So yeah, I think I do that. I research what the historical background of the show is, and then I kind of break down my character in terms of what them personally. So I can do it on those two levels.
Fantastic. And so, just to conclude briefly, what is in the future plans for Oisín Nolan? What's your aspirations? What's your goals? And where do you see yourself in the next few years?
Oh my gosh, well, hopefully employed in theatre again. Like, fingers crossed that goes back up and running soon. But yeah, no, it's been really nice to be home for this short period, but I think I will I'm going to be back in London in the new year. There's some exciting stuff happening just before lockdown happened that I keep forgetting. Such a mean buzzword. But yeah, hopefully I'll be going back to that place next year. There were lots of really exciting things that were happening just before lockdown that are obviously postponed, and for the time being, that will hopefully be back up and running, which we'll find out more about when that happens. But yeah, I think I'm like hopefully being quite optimistic about the things that are going to happen on the other side of lockdown. I think there's so many creative people with so little to do that there's an endless amount of writing happening, and there's an endless amount of like ideas coming out of lots of people that I'd say we're in for a real treat when theatres can open up again.
Lovely stuff. We wish you all the success, Oisín. No doubt we're definitely going to see you climb the ranks of theatre, and who knows, maybe film too.
I hear now. Yeah, here's hoping.
We'll see, but yeah, no, fair play to you, and you're an absolute credit to the society and what you did for it and what you've gone on to be. So yeah, real hats off to you, and we just want to thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a great time. Thank you.
No problem at all. No problem at all. So well, and that concludes our lovely chat again. Next week we have the illustrious Sean Carrick. Sean will be joining us next Sunday again, so tune in for that. She'll talk to us about all things composing in musical theatre. But yeah, how about yourself, out?
I cannot wait for next week. I think it's going to be a great perspective. Oisín, thank you so much for joining us this week. Anyone who hasn't listened to Rags, give it a listen. I fell in love with the show. Like, it's unreal. It's just such an interesting show, and it's such an interesting cast recording to listen to. If anyone has any suggestions for guests they'd like to see in the future, direct message the account and we will get working on that. We have some unreal stuff coming. I am really excited for what's to come. And also, as always, keep an eye on our socials. We have a big week coming, a pretty big, exciting launch tomorrow, I think, anyway. I don't know if I can say anything yet, but
some announcements.
There's some announcements that just going to be some good crack coming. Keep an eye out. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Best of luck. Upcoming exams, upcoming essays. You'll get through them. Hopefully this little hour and a bit gets you guys through the weekend anyway. Oisín, thank you so much again. We really appreciate you coming on, and such an interesting conversation as well. I think that's us.
That's us. We can leave it there. God bless.
Perfect. Thank you very much.